Hello and welcome to our Python full course. In this video, we are already going to dive into coding with Python. We are going to tackle variables and functions. And with this, we are going to build our very first application in Python. Let's now create a folder in our terminal and open our code editor. The good thing about Python is that in order to start, you can just create any file and start writing your codes. Let's create a new file and name it main.py. The first thing we'll look at is how to use a function. In this case, the print function. You can use the print function to show any message in the terminal or the console. To use it, we just type in print, opening parenthesis, the message we want to print, and then closing parenthesis. Now that's our first program using a single line of code. To run it, let's head over to our terminal. Make sure that we are inside the directory of our code. Type in Python space the name of our file and then press enter. And there it is, the message we gave the print function to print. So you have seen how to basically run a script in Python by typing in the command Python followed by the file name. Now, if you are using the online compiler I've shown in the previous video, just follow along with the code. Then if you are ready to run it, just click the run button above the editor and the output will be shown to the right. As you may have noticed, what we've put inside the function parenthesis, the hello world text, is what we call in programming a string literal. In layman's term, literal means a value. What we used inside the print function is a value with the type string. Python has many types. Some of the basic types are integer, floating point number, string, boolean, and many more. We will dive into more details in functions later. For now, let's discuss about variables. Variables in programming are placeholders. This means they hold values. In Python, variables can hold anything, from values, another variables, and even hold reference to a function. In Python, we declare variables by giving values to it. Now let's see how to make a variable in Python. In this example, let's create three variables: a name, age, and Ismail. These are string, integer, and a boolean. Now let's print the values of these variables. Just use the print statement, giving it the names of the variables, and let's run the program. For our project, we will build a small temperature converter. To make this simple, we will do it only from Celsius to Fahrenheit. For this, let's practice. What we need is how to calculate values using variables and maybe put it in another variable. Next, we need to know how to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit. Then, let's talk about command line arguments. From the previous example, we run our program by typing in the command Python and then the file name of our program. In Python, we can use what we call command line argument. After the file name in the command, whatever we type after will be considered command line arguments. For example, we can name our program basic converter. We can key in the command Python basic converter.py and 45 for the Celsius. The number 45 here will be our command line argument. Now, let's work into it. First, let's create a new file. Let's name this basicconverter.py. Let's import a module called sys. Inside the sys module, there is a variable called argv. This variable holds a list of arguments that we type in the command line if we use our program. Let's find out what's inside this argv variable if we give it some arguments when we run our program. Now let's try to run this program. We will give it a sample argument, for example test, just a string. As we can see, the argv gave us a list of string. The first is the file name, and the second is the argument that we gave it, the test string. Now that we know what the argv give us, let's put it into a variable called arguments. You can name this whatever you want, but I'll stick to this. As we can see on the output, the first element on the list is the file name. We will talk about lists later, but for now, let's take note of that. So we'll get the second element. To get an element from a list, we put the name of the list and then inside the square bracket, the index of the element that we want. In this example, the index is 1. We will tackle more about this when we are on the topic of lists in Python. For now, let's just print Celsius and see if we are getting the correct input. For now, it's printing what we expected. So let's get the value of this variable and convert it to Fahrenheit. What I'm typing right now is called a comment. So we start it with a hashtag. A comment in Python or any other programming language is not read by an interpreter or a compiler. So this is just for us to reference by. Let's now create a new variable called Fahrenheit. This is where the converted value will reside. Next is we use the print statement to show the user what the value of the converted Celsius is in Fahrenheit. As you can see here, the print statement will accept not just one value as argument, so we passed in two separated by commas. And congratulations, we have our first error. So what does the error message tell us? Can't multiply sequence by non-int of type float. So that's not very helpful, right? What this means is it cannot do multiplication operation. So why? First, the Celsius that we get is it's correct. We're getting 45, but if you get the value from the argument from the commanded argument, um, that's a string. So before we used it for multiplication or any mathematical operation, we need to convert it to a number. So in this case, we'll just convert it to float. So more on this later. I'll just use float because the user might put in decimal values on the input. So let's run this again. And there you go. We now have a working program called converter. So it just converts Celsius to Fahrenheit for now, but it's alright. Now let's go and check if our answer is correct. So 113. So let's try an online calculator. So Celsius to Fahrenheit. So if you input 45, you get 113. So congratulations, our program is spitting the correct answer. So that's it for now. So what we learned so far, we learned how to create a new file, then we learned how to run it in the command line, and then we learned about variables and functions. So aside from those, we took a little peek about lists and some usage of module. So we use the sys module here. I hope you get value from this content. I'll see you in the next one.